Welcome to the Wonder Cinema Podcast,
where we wonder about cinema.
I'm filmmaker and film critic Brian Henry Martin.
And I'm cinema historian and author Dr. Sam Manning.
Welcome to Series 2, where we'll be wondering about the remarkable story of home video in Northern Ireland.
The rise and fall of videotape, from format wars to video nasties, piracy, paramilitaries, and the wonder of the video shop.
So we want you to
say yes to VHS.
Sam, episode 2, and the button we're going to press is stop. Because aye, Captain Sam, shiver me timbers, it's pirate and counterfeit videos. Sam, why in the midst of the positive glow of video are we talking about this?
Yeah, so in the last episode we talked about the rise of home video and VHS, bringing this into people's homes. And there's lots of money to be made here, but there's also lots of money to be made by people who pirated and counterfeited videos. And almost as soon as people had VCRs in their homes, piracy was an issue. It was widely reported on the press. It was a big issue for video distributors, big issue for video shop owners. And it was perceived as a big issue in society because of the people who were potentially making money from pirating these videos.
So the video boom was a piracy boom. I mean, Sam, I was amazed that in the early 1980s, half the entire video market was in some way either pirate videos or counterfeit videos. We're talking about thousands of films, millions of cassettes. Sam, but before we move forward with this, what is the difference between a pirate video and a counterfeit video?
Well, that's a good question, and a legal expert might might argue with me here. But as I understand it, a pirate video is a version of a film that is not currently available. So it might be a film that was been shown on the cinema. That cinematic version has been illegally copied onto a video. Where a counterfeit video is a copy of a pre-existing video that is already available for sale or rental.
So 1982 seems to be boom time for the pirates. The UK black market is worth £100 million a year in video. I mean, Sam, what was going on? I mean, how was this able to happen?
Well, VCRs for the first time allowed people to record content at home, but that also meant it was very easy for the pirates to copy these videos. You know, they could buy a copying machine. Often they bought many of these machines and run it in a factory-like operation. It was very, very easy once they had one copy of a video to produce lots of copies, flood the market with these at a much cheaper price than was available in kind of legitimate video shops.
I mean, I find all of that really fascinating, that the tech itself allowed people to copy. So as you say, you had these backstreet factories. So if you had 30 machines, you know, in a day, you could make hundreds of copies just overnight. I mean, it's really quite extraordinary. So, Dr. Sam, when did this really become a big issue?
Well, pretty much as soon as VHS came onto the market. So the first instance I've found of video piracy occurring in Northern Ireland was in 1978 with the release of Saturday Night Fever. So shortly before it was released in cinemas, there was reports in the local newspapers that screenings of Saturday Night Fever had been happening in hotels and other locations. So, for instance, there were screenings in Kelly's Links Hotel in Portrush. So that's interesting in itself, isn't it? That early on in the video boom, it wasn't people buying copies for their own homes. They were going out to places to watch copies of these pirate videos being shown.
So this was like cinema exhibition. This was not home entertainment. This was actually, turning venues into cinemas.
Yeah, so this is 1978, so it's slightly before people really started to get video recorders in their own homes in terms of a mass level across society, yeah.
But, you know, Saturday Night Fever, it's almost the perfect film to show in a pub or a club, because after the movie, you can just Tony Manero your way onto the dance floor. I mean, Sam, this is the kind of event that film festivals later would dream about. So I can see this, happening in Kelly's and Portrush and just working perfectly. But Sam, this was a pirate video. So the question was, how deep is your pockets?
Well, so it would have cost you $150 to enter Kelly's Hotel in Portrush if you wanted to go.
And you get a movie and a dance.
Yeah, well, we don't... I hope people were dancing along. That would be the perfect way to watch it, wouldn't it?
Well, you should be dancing. Now, Sam, I mean, the economics of this is quite extraordinary. I mean, we've mentioned some of the figures, but give us a sense from your point of view of how profitable this was.
Well, extremely profitable, and this is reported on at the time. So by 1981, there's an article titled "Crackdown on Illegal Video Picture Shows." So they know that this is making people extraordinary amounts of money, and it's gone beyond clubs, hotels, public spaces into people's homes. There's a common perception, I think, at this time that it's kind of all right if you can get away with it, that it's not a major crime. People perceive it as something that is more of a minor indiscretion than it is a crime. These people are perhaps unaware that paramilitaries are becoming involved in video piracy, and we'll talk about that a bit later. They made lots of money from copying these videos and distributing illegal copies.
Sam, for the ordinary video shop owner, I mean, what did they face economically? It's a kind of can't beat 'em, join 'em, kind of mindset because they were faced, with a piracy boom.
Yeah, absolutely. Once one person starts doing it, it's very hard then to run a legitimate business successfully, because if you're being undercut by someone who claims to own a legitimate video shop but is also selling under-the-counter pirate copies cheaper than they would be available elsewhere, it becomes very hard to compete, doesn't it? And there's a really interesting episode of Counterpoint, which is a kind of a panorama style program that was produced in Northern Ireland in the 1980s, in 1982, about video piracy. And they talk to video shop owners where they express that kind of attitude that you were talking about, which is, if you can't beat them, join them. We have no choice but to engage in video piracy, otherwise we'll go out of business.
And they underline the economics. I mean, to buy the film legitimately from the video distributor, could cost you between £40 to £60, whereas the pirate video could cost maybe £10 to £15. So economically, there's such a gulf there.
Yeah, and it makes more sense for the consumer, economically at least, to buy these pirate copies, because as we said, at that time, almost all videos are rented rather than bought outright. But now you can buy a copy outright for £5 or £6 and take it home with you.
Now, Sam, I have a pirate copy in the studio with us today. I'm going to pass it over to you. I'm going to get you to open the box and tell me what is inside.
Okay, I don't want to get in trouble from the police if I open this, this Brian, but I will. This is in a brown faux leather, but very plastic feeling case. I remember these from my childhood as well. It says Video Library on the side. If I open it up, I can see a copy of E.T., the Extra Terrestrial.
Oh my goodness, E.T., phone the police. And tell me, why is that so significant in the pirate video story?
So E.T. was one of the most pirated films in Northern Ireland in the early 1980s. So if you listened, which I'm sure you did, to the first series of The Wonder Cinema, you will remember that E.T. was shown at the ABC Cinema in December 1982, featuring DJ Peter Powell, which I'm sure was very exciting for people in Belfast at the time. And then it was released generally later that month. But many people had already watched it before then, because there are reports from summer 1982 that E.T. is being circulated widely in Northern Ireland. There are pirate copies available for £5 from Ballymena, and there are reports that suggest 10,000 copies are in circulation already by mid-August 1982.
Wow. Now, Sam, let's just talk about the theatrical window here and how this piracy is possible. So E.T. opens in the summer of 1982 across the USA, and somehow, while it's playing in the cinema stateside, it arrives on video in Northern Ireland. How's this possible?
I don't know how this pirate copy of E.T. came to Northern Ireland. Presumably it was a case of it being shown in the US and someone copying that and bringing it over. And if you had the right equipment, it was quite easy to transfer from a US to a UK copy, because at the time there were two different formats. You know, you couldn't watch a US video on a UK video player.
Yeah, so US was NTSC and UK Europe was PAL, so two different systems, but somehow ET got past this, you know.
Yeah, and it was so popular that even at the end of 1982, reports suggested that ET was one of the most popular videos of 1982. And Brian, it wasn't even released officially until 6 years later in 1988.
So you're saying ET wasn't released on video until 1988. I mean, why was that, Sam? Was that because everybody already owned a video?
Well, a lot of the big film companies felt it was in their best interest not to release a video copy shortly after it was in the cinema, because they hoped they could make more money by re-releasing the film several times.
Okay, Sam, I'm going to place the copy of E.T. into our special video player here in the studio. So let's see what happens when we place E.T. inside. I mean, think about the technology here for a moment. I mean, was it easy to tell the difference between, you know, a pirate video, a counterfeit video, or a proper, legitimate copy of a film? Now, in this case, E.T., it's obviously not, but was it easy to tell the difference?
Good question. Some unscrupulous dealers would claim that they couldn't tell the difference between pirate and genuine copies. Maybe they couldn't tell the difference, but it could also be a genuine excuse if you didn't want to be found out selling pirate copies. And it really depended. There were some copies that may have been filmed in cinemas, which probably wouldn't have been the greatest copies. But if it was copied from a genuine VHS release in the US, then the quality would be almost as good, if not the same, as the original.
Yeah, we've all seen those copies. Well, some of us have, of, you know, filmed over somebody's head with people coughing and getting up in the middle of the film, etc. But as you say, if they were well-crafted copies, I mean, because my experience of this technology of video is, like, a lot of the time the technology, the screen, you know, was always a bit grainy. There was what we used to call snowfall, you know, when the frames would kind of drop out. The sound was never great. I mean, if a young person today was to watch this kind of technology, I don't know what they would think of it.
Yeah, you had to play with the tracking on the video recorder.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long way from, you know, 4K, high definition, digital, you know, television that we watch today.
And I think the other thing to point out is that even though E.T. was very widely pirated at the time, it didn't dampen people's enthusiasm for going to the cinema to see it. It was very successful. In fact, it may have increased people's appetite to go and see it on the big screen after having watched it at home.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really funny thing, isn't it? Like, you would have thought if people had have already seen E.T., why go and see it in the cinema? And yet they did. And it became the most successful film ever. And somehow the two complemented each other. Now, it would take the video companies and the film companies another 6 years to work this out.
Yeah, I'm not sure Universal would necessarily agree with your argument.
No, maybe not. But, you know, Sam, the morality of watching a pirate video like we have here, I mean, I'm sure I watch pirate videos or counterfeit videos, and I was unaware that they were. But in the summer of 1982, if somebody had offered me the chance to watch E.T., a film that would be long in the distance coming in the cinema, undoubtedly I would have jumped at it. I would have broken the law, Sam,
For £5, definitely.
just to be able to go into the playground the next day and say, I have seen E.T. And isn't it ironic, as Alana Morissette would say, the very thing that made VHS so adaptable was its ability to record, made it so easy to pirate. You know, the technology itself just made it a pirate's dream.
And there's very little that the authorities could do to stop people copying it, other than these raids afterwards. You know, the industry set up trade organisations to try and solve the problem of piracy. But it's a very difficult issue to solve. I think, especially in the context of Northern Ireland, when you think what issues the police had to face, you know, you would have thought that they would have ideally liked to have spent the majority of their time dealing with the ongoing situation rather than having to deal with video pirates. But in many ways, those two things were joined up together. You know, they were part of the same problem.
And what a strange time it was when we think back that the illicit deals that were happening on street corners was not drugs or guns. Well, it probably was both those things, but it was also films. It was videos. You know, movies were a license to print money in the early 1980s. We're talking about a video boom, a piracy boom in the early 1980s. And there was so much money in this that there was bound to be a crackdown on this. What happened?
Yeah, so as I say, you know, right from the beginning of the video boom, the police start to take notice of piracy, and there are attempts made to crack down on this. The first report of a seizure of tapes that I found was in 1981 by the RUC Anti-Racketeering Squad, but they really start to up their attempts to stop the video pirates from then on. There was a huge raid. So there was a huge raid in February 1983, where reports suggest they take 30 to 35,000 tapes from video shops across Northern Ireland. There were 200 police involved in this operation. One morning, they brief all the staff in the centre of Belfast. They then go out to Northern Ireland to 25 different shops, and basically, you can see it in some of the reports from the time, they just pick up all the videos from the shelf and put them into big plastic bags and take them back to police HQ in Belfast. And at that time, they have no way of knowing if these are legitimate or pirate copies. They have to sift through these all to tell if they are. And as you've just alluded to, it can, in many circumstances, be very difficult to determine a real from a pirate or counterfeit copy.
So they take the videos back to police HQ and they have to sit and watch E.T.
It's a hard life.
That's what the police were doing in 1982. Yeah. But I mean, when you think about that, Sam, you know, 30 to 35,000 tapes. This is the biggest raid of pirate videos in the UK in the history of video raids, if there is such a thing. Which means that Northern Ireland, Sam, was the pirate ship at the front of the fleet of counterfeit videos. I mean, Sam, who was benefiting from this pirate boom?
Well, lots of different people are involved. You start to see prosecutions from 1985. Lots of the people who are fined are video shop owners who are found to be selling these illegal copies, knowing that they were pirated in the first place. There's also lots of evidence to suggest that paramilitaries were involved and made a lot of money from pirating videos. In fact, lots of reports suggest this was one of the main ways that they made money to fund their activities. So, for instance, if we go towards the late 80s, 3 Extravision, one of the main chains operating in Ireland, which we'll talk about more in a later episode, 3 Extravision stores were bombed or damaged, and reports suggest that loyalist sources say this is to protect data because Extravision had a computerized system, but it's also widely kind of suggested that the real purpose of this is to put their legitimate competition out of business to help them distribute pirate videos. There were other reports in the early 90s that the IRA are making up to 1 million a year from video piracy, and it's a third of their racketeering revenue. So obviously, paramilitaries are making money out of this. I'm not sure when people are picking up a pirate video from their local video shop, they're thinking that this money is directly funding paramilitaries. But that is probably what was happening at that time.
And, you know, this pirate video boom had many ways of operating. It wasn't just in video libraries or video shops on the high street. You know, I remember people would sell and rent pirate videos out the back of their cars, their vans. You know, it was almost like ice cream vans going around the city, you know, distributing pirate videos. So there was many different ways that pirate videos, you know, were kind of distributed.
Yeah, in more rural areas, there were reports of, you know, people rocking up in a car or a van and selling videos out the back of it, local fairs, car boot sales, that kind of thing. And that would happen well into the DVD era.
Sam, there's a couple of statistics here I want to run past you. 1983, 75% of video shops in Northern Ireland stock pirate videos. I mean, that's what was discovered in the wake of that raid. I mean, that's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably impossible to measure the extent of pirate videos, isn't it? But all the statistics seem to suggest that this was prevalent across society. Pretty much everyone was renting pirate videos, willingly or not. You know, they just were flooded the market, and all the attempts by the RUC at the time never seemed to have been entirely successful, even though they made lots of prosecutions. You know, I could give you lots of examples of people who were fined or even sent to prison for engaging in video piracy.
Now, Sam, I don't know what this means, but I mean, colour plays a big part in all of this because reportedly, you can explain this to me, 25% of pirate videos are blue movies. Sam, what does that mean? I'm just being cheeky, but Sam, it just goes to show, though, that, you know, that was a big driver for this industry as well.
Yeah, and as we said in the previous episode, people didn't necessarily want to be seen to be going into the cinema to see, you know, what they call double X videos. It's much more comfortable to watch them, you know, in the home, and if you could get them cheaply. You know, we've spoken to people who said that Debbie Does Dallas, it was very widely pirated at the time, which probably now would be considered, you know, softcore porn, but obviously, you know, people were desperate to get their hands on this tape.
Now, were there any other film titles that you've come across that were associated with being pirated at this time?
Well, there's lots of different stories about different films. One person I spoke to spoke about getting a copy of The Life of Brian in the early 80s in West Belfast and running into some troubles with the IRA to the extent that members of the IRA came into one of their family members' living rooms and literally pulled the VCR out of the wall and took it with them. Didn't even take the video out, just took the whole VCR player with them. So I'm sure you could get into trouble if you didn't return the videos on time or play by their rules.
So, Sam, the crackdown happens. Did this solve the problem of piracy? Was this an end to all of this?
No, it didn't, Brian. Definitely not. The police continued to carry out raids on video shops and video dealers. Prosecutions continued well into the 1990s. So I have a couple of examples from 1993 here. There was a man in Craigavon who received a 3-month suspended sentence for dealing with illegal copies of videos. Then later in the year, a woman in Polglass was fined £200 for opening up her own pirate video library. And it's the kind of thing that tends to flare up when there are big movies out that are widely pirated. So one of these in 1994 was, can you guess what it might be, Brian?
Was it The Lion King?
It was The Lion King, Brian. So The Lion King was released in cinemas in Northern Ireland in October 1994. And already around that time, there were lots of reports that it's being pirated. The Sunday Life printed an article where they interviewed one mother who said they'd bought a pirate copy at Nuts Corner Market, but she wasn't too pleased with the copy that she had bought. She said, "I couldn't believe it. They were so cheap. So I bought one, and the kids were delighted when I told them we were going to see The Lion King when we got home. But when we settled down to watch it, the sound was terrible, only audible in some places. As for the quality of the film, well, it was really bad." And Brian, this is the really sad part. The kids started to cry because they couldn't hear or see the film, and this was really upsetting. So I suppose that's kind of what you get if you pay £6, which was apparently the going rate at this time for pirate videos of The Lion King.
So the moral of the story, Sam, is if you want the best sound and the best vision, go to the cinema. Sam, now, just to finish off on pirate and counterfeit videos, I mean, you know, the odd thing about all of this is it's kind of built into the technology. It's in the DNA of video to actually copy. That's what videos were made for. And, you know, there's part of me thinks we were taping films of the television. I was certainly taping films of the television. And that feels like pirating. It feels like we were all pirates. You know, there's something about that technology.
Yeah, it was very easy to copy off the TV, and it was very easy to copy legitimate copies of videos if you had the right equipment as well. And certainly the big film companies were aware that this was going on, and there's very little really that they could do to stop it.
That's the end of our stop on pirate videos. And what comes after stop? Eject. In the next episode, we eject the video nasty.
Thank you everyone for listening to Say Yes to VHS.
Our theme music is by Score Draw.
The Wonder Cinema Video Shop
Is now closed.